Hi, I'm Yolanda, and welcome to my personal revolution, the place where I take all of the musings of my heart and my mind as I watch the news, as I watch social media, and just live my life, and how I take the sum total of my experience from being a corporate leader and a civic leader, a passionate philanthropist, and one who's very interested in the mechanisms of how government works in conjunction with society, especially corporate America, because that's my space. So, everybody at the table is my personal revolution that somehow, some way through these conversations, we're creating another layer of change. This week, I've invited M. Smith, my sister, my dream catcher. Em and I have not known each other long, but sometimes you don't have to know someone a long period of time to know their spirit and to know their motive and to know their heart. And Em is such one. We met after the election. Both of our organic responses to wanting to do something and finding what to do and how to do it in a collective led us to meet through another organization, and we've since joined in a side project. And she is a dream catcher. By profession, she is a psychotherapist, and so she deals with Black women, especially high impact Black women who deal with the stress of burnout every day. And I've invited Em to share from her perspective really the challenges that come with being at the forefront all the time, particularly in this case of the civil rights movement and wanting to create change in this country, the impact, the long term impact it can have on the person, particularly Black women in this discussion, and then how and what does rest look like for her and for me, and what it can look like for you as we take our rest. M. Smith, welcome
Hello.
to everybody at the table. You are my inaugural guest. I'm so excited to have you.
I am equally excited and I'm honored to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. It is a pleasure. Em and I met actually virtually. We have not seen each other in person ever. And
And
that's a
we're too
shame because
close.
we live 2 hours away from each other. We met on TikTok after the election, in a post-election gathering of like-minded women in an
Mm-hmm.
organization that we both joined. And so we have a separate project we're working on. We've become fast dream buddies. And
Yes.
so not only is she my dream buddy, but she is a stellar professional in her own right in the therapy community there in South Carolina. But I'll let her talk about herself. But she got a lot going on, including her own podcast. So, Em, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Of course. So I am M. Smith, a licensed psychotherapist turned authenticity coach. I am the CEO and founder of Grace Based Counseling Group. My specialty is, or as I like to say it, my superpower is helping women leaders cultivate a life that feels as good as it looks.
Mm,
I think as high achievers, we love to check boxes, right? So we have the car, we have the career, we may have the relationship, we may have the income, right? But underneath all of that, we are stressed, we are burned out, we are unhappy, unfulfilled,
mm.
unsatisfied. So I love to tap into that and really help leaders um, tap into their authentic selves.
In this idea of Black women and us taking our rest, let's talk about, and I would like for you to share some ways that staying in the fight, always being at the forefront of the movement, how has that had a psychological toll, an emotional toll, a mental toll on our lives?
Yeah, so I'll talk about the patterns that I see on my couch. And the most common pattern is the cycle of sorts, where you start with stress, which then turns to anxiety, which then turns to overwhelm, which then turns to depression. And then we
Yep.
pull ourselves out. and it starts all over again. We get stressed out by always being on. That turns into being anxious of making of if we can get everything done. That
Right.
anxiety then turns to overwhelm. Like, I got so much ish to do, I can't do it. I'm just not going to do anything, right? And then we fall into depression. So that's one of the major patterns that I see of, quote unquote, as you said, always being on. Okay, so in addition to that pattern, what I also see is, which is an actual diagnosis, something called complex PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this constant idea of being let down and disappointed over and over and over again. Just being a black woman moving through the world, we are often let down, right? We hold on to hope only to be let down. But then you add to it this layer of our current political climate and the DEI rollbacks and this expectation of us to push through and always show up. Yeah, PTSD, complex PTSD more specifically in the Black community is very common.
And for me, the letdown, right, it is a swing because, we get all our energy up to go and protest, but then we have no power in the solution because we
Right,
don't own anything. We're not the CEOs. We're not at the table making the decisions. And so
right,
there's this fierce, rebuttal when we experience the letdown of a target that we
right,
had attached our emotions to because they said they was going to do DEI and they did it, right? They did focus on Black brands and they're putting on Black designers, and we saw that in action. But I think as a community, we have to recognize that was also a financial move for Target. And
mm,
if Target, as a corporation, because they're in business to make money, decides they no longer want to do that, we certainly have a right not to support them. But we also, because we don't have the power at the table, attach ourselves to the ones that say we're going to do it. And then when they don't, that letdown is so disappointing. I agree with
right,
that. So
right.
when you say it shows up in our, I guess, protest lives and our civic lives, what does that look like at home? Because you just can't turn that energy off where, you're out in the streets or you're looking at TV and you're in protest mode and now your husband comes in or your kid comes in or your job disappoints you. How does that look for Black women? And we'll talk about some solutions in a minute.
Yeah, again, I think it just layers on, right? It's just another added layer. So we come home and I feel like we put these false expectations on ourselves, but we think we have to be everything to everyone, our
Mm,
children, our spouses, especially if you're a high achieving woman, you're the go-to for everything, the problem solver. I like to call it the Olivia Pope of your family, right? You're the
right.
fixer. Everyone's coming to you. So it's just added layers of I got to do, I got to do, I got to do.
I
Yeah.
got to show up for somebody. And
Yes.
it's innately in us. I saw on TikTok this week this white. I have to send you her TikTok because it was like she was phenomenal. She was just explaining um, white woman existence,
Please send
and
it to me.
I actually want to I don't want that lady. I want to talk to her, and she was what she was unveiling about what it is to be a white woman and to be in this power structure of whiteness. And I was reflecting on what it means to be Black in whiteness. And I was like, I mean, for us, for them, the acceptance is power. And because we know we're not going to be accepted, we're always rebelling and advocating against it. And I was like, oh, that's why they see us as troublemakers.
Mm,
Because we won't lay down and just accept it.
mhm,
Right? And even in our rest, they're mad that we're not showing up because they know it's not acceptance. It's still
mhm.
resistance.
Right, right. What's that line from Five Heartbeats? All my life I had to fight. What's that color purple?
No, it's color purple. That's color purple.
All my
It's
life
so
I had to
clear.
fight. Yes.
So for us, it's like, where are the Black people? We're resting, but because They're like, y'all are, this is resistance too. This is not true acceptance.
Right. Which is why I love the idea of rest as resistance. It's a silent and a peaceful protest
It is. It's
of
like,
nah,
okay.
y'all do it. Y'all got it.
I
Y'all
mean,
do it.
men know when they get in the silent treatment, they know all is not well. I'm just not talking to you right.
Right.
So this is our response, right? Is I'm not talking to you right now. But what should we be doing? Like we're resting. And you say something that I think is so powerful in this self-care um way of being, right? We know self-care, I'm having a self-care day. And I love when you say there's a difference between maintenance and self-care. Right.
Hmm.
So talk to them about what that looks like. What's the difference between maintenance and self-care while we're resting?
Yeah. So I feel like we talk about self care all the time, and it's a very used term nowadays. But we think self-care is getting our hair done or, getting our lashes and our nails and our pedicures. When in all actuality, that's just maintenance.
Right.
We got as Black women, we have to have our hair done. We
And
have to get it
sometimes it don't
done.
feel like self-care because I don't want to get up and do this right now because
And sit in that salon for 3, 4,
exactly.
5, 6 hours. Exactly. So self-care is subjective, right?
Mm,
And when we talk about rest as resistance and what does rest look like, I think rest is subjective as well, right? So,
mm,
yes, rest is taking a step back. Yes, rest is, vegging out on a couch for a day. Yes, physically resting, right? But rest could also be I'm going to focus inward. All of that energy I put outward and externally, existentially, I'm going to focus it in. So now I'm instead of focusing, on nurturing everyone else, I'm going to nurture me. And what
mm.
does that look like? That can be me doing a jigsaw puzzle. That can be reading a book. That can be sitting outside on a porch, right? Putting my feet in some grass. But rest could also look like I'm going to start that business I always wanted to start. Instead of focusing so much on doing all the projects at my job, I'm
Mm.
resting and now I'm gonna focus on me and I'm gonna do what I always wanted to do. I'm gonna start that business. I'm going to go back to school or whatever that looks like for you. So rest, yes, physically and literally can be, like I said, vegging out on the couch, but rest can also be doing what you've always wanted to do but never really took the time to do it for you.
I love that. And I'm thinking about a comment I saw this week about doing nothing is a plan. Like I plan to do nothing. That's a plan. And because I
Mhm.
plan to do nothing, don't put something on my schedule today because rest for me is to do nothing. And
Right.
whatever that looks like that day, that's what's my plan. I hope that every federal worker is listening to this podcast right now because the idea of, taking your laptop home and working extra hours, take that time you was given to the federal government and build your own. Take
Mhm.
Figure out if you wanted to do something different, now is your time. Do your 40. And listen, I advocate for doing 40 anyway, because listen, if you got to do more than 40 hours, there's some time management or resource gap that needs to be filled. Nobody should be
Mhm.
working more than 40 hours a week. Um, to that end, I hope y'all are doing something amazing with your time and definitely
Mhm.
protecting your energy because the ridiculousness of what's going on there is sad to see.
Yeah, and I hope, can I just add, I just hope,
Yes.
in talking about the federal workers and like I said, all of the DEI rollbacks, even those that still have their jobs, just navigating that space in
Mm.
uncertainty. I just
Mhm.
want all of us to be gentle with ourselves right now. Not only for ourselves, but for our sisters. We just really need to be gentle with ourselves right now in this moment, extend grace and give ourselves space to process all that is going on because it's a lot.
Final words, for the table community. Final words that you would want to share around how resistance as rest should look like or looks like for you. Like, what are you doing? Because you're a part of this movement. You're a part of the 92%. what are you doing to create rest in this moment? Quotes on rest, because
Yeah.
rest isn't necessarily sleeping or doing
Right.
nothing.
Honestly, Yolanda, coming into this moment, I think there was a very profound movement or moment when our current president took office. And much like everyone else in the world, or a lot of people in the world, I was stunned. I needed a day and I had to recover from that. So knowing that I was coming into 2025, I had to be intentional in thinking about how am I going to show up and how am I going to move. And I've been 100% intentional about turning the TV off. I already knew
Mm.
what dumpster fire this was going to be coming into it. The first 100 days, I already knew the first 2 to 3 months were going to be crazy. And
Mm.
I told myself I'm going to refrain from consuming any of that. And I've been very intentional about that. So rest for me is not taking in the media. And I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, well, I have to stay informed," but you don't. You get to I grew up in the church, so I know a lot of Christianese. But my dad used to always tell me to guard your gates. What you see,
Mm-hmm.
what you're consuming, what you're hearing, the things that come out of your mouth, you have to guard your gates. And in this time, I think, as you said, a few minutes ago, I really do feel like it's race baiting at this point. It's too
It is.
outrageous. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's intentional, too outrageous. And I feel like a lot of the ways that he moves is just that,
Mm-hmm.
to get us out of character and
Mm-hmm.
to stir us up. But I decided that he's not going to have that power over me, right?
And
He's not
you
going to, I
get to
refuse.
decide that.
You
Someone
get to decide that.
coined the phrase, I don't remember when he was in office before, cruelty is the point. It was like a New York Times article, a Washington Post article around the things that he was doing, that the point is cruelty.
Mm-hmm.
And it literally is almost like watching a predator play with its prey.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really disheartening, not just for the folks that are doing it, but those that are cheering it on. It's like, it's just, and
Mm-hmm.
many of them call themselves, well, I'm not even
Mm-hmm.
gonna go there, but
Mm-hmm.
it's really disheartening to
Mm-hmm.
see um, that occur. My heart goes out to those individuals. For me, rest is, look, I'm becoming a little more radical.
Mm.
And by that, I don't mean radical in the sense of harm, but radical in sharing my voice as a leader, a corporate leader.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You try to walk this fine line of, well, what am I going to say publicly? How am I going to manage my social media? How do
Mm-hmm.
I, respond? Do I want out there? And I'm getting to the point now where I'm like, y'all know me, because I know that in my heart, what I have to share is what's right. Everybody at the table. And if you're not going to build a table where everybody's welcome, then we'll build our own.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody deserves, I don't care who you are. And if you don't see yourself as a part of the table, that's a you problem. So
Mm-hmm.
if you don't see yourself in diversity, equity, and inclusion, ask yourself why.
Mm-hmm.
You're the outlier, because you don't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just becoming a little more radical in my voice and tone, and refusing to accept some of what we hear, even in the nomenclature. You're not going to change my language. You're not going to change my words and
Right.
how I share, because people are insensitive and can't accept. And thank you. This is a great conversation. Of course, I can go on and on. I am so excited you joined me today. So tell the people, how can they find you? Because I said you have your own podcast. Like, if people want to, if those executive women want to show up and say, hey, I need M to kind of guide me through this next phase of my career or my life, how do people find out about you?
So, yes, Substack has become my soapbox. I would love for you guys to find me on Substack. My handle is themsmith.substack.com. And M is spelled, that's THEEMMESMITH.substack.com. That's where you can find all of my musings. In addition to that, you can find me on Facebook and IG with the handle of embrace gray space. And lastly, you can find me on my website. My website is www.grayspacecounseling.com. That's GRAY counseling.com. I look forward to connecting with each of you.
And M is putting out some powerful content on leadership and leadership reform and how you think about leading in this new way of working in this new world of leading. So please follow her, check her out. She is a voice to reckon with, one you want to hear in your social media streets, and her words will impact your life in a positive way.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you.
But thank you so much, Em. We'll talk soon. We'll have to have you come back at the table.
Yes, of course. Anytime you invite me, I'm there. I want to be at the table. Thank you for having me today.
Wow, what an inspiring conversation. I am re-energized just listening to the podcast, and I was a part of the original. But I'm so grateful to Em for joining and giving us her insight and her experience and her professionalism. And thank you for all of you for listening each week and liking and sharing the podcast. Please make sure you check out Em and at her handles, at her website, and take advantage of all that she has to offer. Thank you again for sharing this podcast with your family, your friends, and listening. Please continue to do that, like and share, and tell me what you would like to hear from us here at Everybody at the Table. Until next week, take some time to create space, if it's just to do nothing, in this moment of collective rest. Thanks again, and dine well.